As promised last time, I would also be going through the setup process of the Ender-3 V3 SE 3D printer with you. Once you already have the said printer assembled, you can go ahead and plug in the power cable onto the port on the left rear part of the printer base. Plug in the other end, of course, into your power source. Then flick on the printer switch to its on position. Once you do that, granted that the control pad is connected correctly, the control pad screen will light up and briefly show the Creality branding. On this printer's initial boot, it will show a prompt for choosing your preferred language. By the way, just mentioning again to not forget to remove the pair of foam bars that are placed between the bed and the base on both the left and right sides before even proceeding with the initial setup. Let me move to a closer camera angle so that the control pad screen is a bit more visible. After selecting your chosen language, by the way, each press on the control pad's knob emits this acknowledgement beep to ensure that your input is recognized. This 3D printer will proceed with its initial auto-Z offset calibration. The reminder message on the screen says to make sure that there are no foreign objects on the nozzle or on the heat bed. You will have to press on the knob or dial again in order to confirm that you have read the reminder and have followed it before the automatic calibration commences. As shown in the unboxing, this printer of course includes a user manual, which contains the steps required for the initial setup. Steps 1 to 3 involves the assembly of the printer, while step 4 onwards shows the calibration done once the printer is powered on. For the initial setup, I'll be using the Creality branded PLA filament that I bought along with this printer. This is the standard 1 kg spool of 1.75mm thick filament, and is from the Ender series of filaments from Creality. I won't be surprised if this is the same exact one included as a freebie with the printer. Take note that even though I already opened the box of filament at this point in the setup process, it is not actually needed yet if you are just going to go through the Z offset calibration part. But I'll be printing my very first model towards the end of this video, so I will indeed be using some filament here. The start of this roll of filament has this sharp bend, so I decided to snip it off just so that the extruder won't have any problems feeding on it. By the way, the screen of the control pad of the V3 SE is not a touchscreen. Just made a tiny mistake there. An additional advice from me, and note that this is a very important one, is to also make sure that there's enough clearance in front of and behind the printer base, at least to the level where the printer bed is vertically. This is because the initial calibration will make all the motors move, and one of those movements is the forwards and backwards adjustment of the printer bed. This means that the printer bed will move beyond or outside of the dimensions of the printer base. And as you would painfully see here, the printer bed hit the obstruction behind it, which it did for a while before I realized what was happening. What I believed happened here is that the calibration procedure froze when the printer bed could not successfully move all the way back. The control pad does not respond even if you rotate or press on the dial. By the way, I'm not sure if it's okay to forcefully move the bed like this. For good measure, do try avoid doing that in order to protect the Y-axis motor from potential damage. What I did next was to just turn the printer off, then turn it back on, which will cause the printer to restart the calibration process, starting with the language selection prompt. As you can see here, the printer no longer froze and proceeded with the calibration as confirmed with the continuous movement of the extruder assembly along the gantry. The control pad screen would then update by making the step that it is currently on blink to a shade of blue from the default orange. By the way, since this isn't the fastest process to complete, I sped up certain portions of the calibration in this video, so don't be confused as to why your own experience with the calibration of the V3 SE might be different. The first step displayed on the screen is the heating up of the nozzle. Once the nozzle reaches the required temperature, the printer would then proceed to the next step, which is the cleaning of the nozzle. It does this by extruding any excess filament that is still in the extruder block. This is one good reason why you shouldn't insert any filament yet into the extruder, like what I did here. If by any chance your brand new V3 SE has any excess filament within the extruder, it should be expelled here since the printer will try to print a vertical line that is along the y-axis on the left side of the bed, which is actually a standard step during every print, at least here on the V3 SE. The third and final step, and basically the heart of this initial calibration process, is the Z-offset auto-adjustment. The first two steps earlier were just preparation steps needed to be done, which I believe is just for checking the status of the extruder nozzle. But this Z-offset adjustment is a very important and determining factor for the quality of the prints that you'll be making with this printer. So, you would see here that the CR touch, which is a tool suspended from the extruder assembly, is touching the bed multiple times at multiple points. There are basically 16 points to which the bed is divided into, and the CR touch is measuring how far the extruder assembly is from each designated point on the bed. From this initial calibration, the numbers 1 to 16 will appear one by one on the control pad screen, designating the assigned points on the bed. Once a number appears, that means that the CR touch is done measuring that corresponding point on the bed. It starts from the lower right side of the bed, will snake around the surface until it ends at the 16th point on the upper right side. Once that is done, the printer will bring back the extruder to the home position, which is the center of the X and Y axis, and very close to the bed along the Z axis. You need to confirm the completion of the calibration by pressing again on the dial. And with that, the setup process of the Ender-3 V3 SE 3D printer is actually done. Technically speaking, you could already start on your first print as long as you have some filament with you, as well as the model file for the print that you would be doing. Based on my research, there are a ton of things that you could calibrate further when it comes to 3D printers, and the Ender-3 V3 SE is no exception. But for now, we could go ahead and make any test print just to get a feel of how 3D printing works, and to see how good the stock settings of your printer are. In order to test out this particular unit of the Ender-3 V3 SE that I got, I'll be printing what probably is the most popular model for 3D printing, the 3D Benchy. The 3D Benchy, if you didn't know yet, is just a small cartoon-style boat that features different surfaces, such as straight edges, some curved edges, and even some overhangs, which are all quite useful in checking out the capability and accuracy of any 3D printer. The included SD card with the Ender-3 V3 SE actually already includes its own kind of benchmark model, which is a version of the Lucky Waving Cat. However, I opted to download a copy of the 3D Benchy instead. I wasn't able to show it on this video, but securing a copy of the 3D Benchy file from the internet is quite easy. And you just have to place it on the SD card from your PC, using either the included SD card to USB-A adapter or any SD card adapter that you would happen to have lying around. Once you have the 3D model file you need, which is most commonly a .stl file on the SD card, just insert the card into the slot on the left hand side of the base of this printer. Take note that the contact side of the SD card must be facing up, as actually indicated on the sticker that you can see here. So just follow that, navigate to the print page on the control pad using the dial, select the model file you want to print on the list that will appear, then select print to initiate the printing process. I'll keep the first part of each of the succeeding video clips in the original speed, just so that you can see how the Ender-3 V3 SE performs by default, while the rest will be sped up, just so that we don't spend the entire day watching the entire print. And with that, my very first 3D print is now done. I now have this 3D benchy in white PLA filament. The screen of the control pad will show the total printing time. You just need to press on the dial again to confirm in order to bring it back to the home screen. As a slight teaser, this is how my Ender-3 V3 SE looks currently. Yes, I know there are a lot of things that are no longer stock, which is why for the succeeding videos on this printer, I'll be sharing the functional prints that could improve the Ender-3 V3 SE. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see all of you in my next video.